Hello, everyone. So my name is Jordan Padams. I'm the manager of the Planetary Data System engineering node. And I just am here today to talk to you about data object identifiers and how the NASA Planetary Data System is giving them and applying them to the archives, how you can find them, how you can get them, and what our future plans are. So yeah, our agenda. So I'll give a quick intro to DOIs for those of you that are somehow familiar. About introduction about how this whole project got started, some background about where we are and where we've been going, the current state of DOIs in the PDS, where they're assigned, how you can kind of find out where they are, and then future plans. So we have lots of things that are kind of in work that are hopefully coming out in the near term that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. So quick intro. So for those of you that I'm sure most of you know, but the NASA PDS captures, archives, and distributes data from robotic exploration in the solar system. PDS-4 is the data standard and architectural approach that we use. So it's the data standard that is behind the scenes for all planetary data science data. It has become the international standard, not just from the PDS, but also in the International Planetary Data Alliance. So to continue on with that, so we have our international colleagues, the International Planetary Data Alliance. It was founded in 2006, which is just it's a cooperating partnership amongst many of the world's space agencies. So we have, you see ESA, JAXA, CNES, and Europlanet, and a few other different agencies. So it's really become a great organization for us to collaborate across the world and adopt a unified standards and unified approaches to things, not only from a standards perspective, but things like DOIs. So yes, so the PDS and IPDA are trying to use this PDS-4 architecture to become a more fair system. And so some of those things that are included there are by having a standard, a common standard, it's a lot easier for us to then build tools, services, APIs, all these other layers on top of that to enable access, reuse, and interoperability of the data. Obviously, you can think about if we all used our own data standard and we all the metadata was in a different format and all the files were in different formats, it'd be really hard for us to standardize on tools, and so that you could pull data from one archive or another and be able to use those same tools on that data. By using the same architecture and the same standards-based approach, we're able to really build these generic tools to become a more fair organization. So as a follow-on to just the PDS-4 architecture is then this data object identifiers. And so data object identifiers are the system of providing a unique identifier for products or for data. PDS has their own unique identifiers, but we also have them attributed to these DOIs. And the primary methods for enabling or minting, I should say, excuse me, the rationale for minting DOIs for PDS archival data is, for one, we want to give credit to the data creators. So we want to make sure there's a DOI for folks that create their data so they get the credit where credit is due. And then also to support reproducibility of published research. So this will make sure that folks, when they use a DOI in their articles or in their papers or in their proposals, that they can cite the data that they use so other folks can reproduce that data, and we can continue to evolve discovery as we move forward using PDS data, and especially using this open science, right? This whole initiative for open science and enabling reproducibility from data from one person to another. So quick background on how we got where we are and where we've gotten to with the PDS and DOIs. So PDS began investigating DOIs in 2017. We just basically, the idea here was to address the challenge of adopting DOIs more broadly across the PDS and the IPDA. because we wanted to develop a consistent DOI solution and strategy for how we're going to assign them at the levels of granularity and all these other decisions that kind of go into assigning DOIs for the entire planetary science community and archive community. And so we did a pilot project for creating and registering PDS4 data using DOIs, trying to address a lot of the use cases that have come up. It sounds easy to just assign a DOI to data, but it's a little more complicated when you're talking archives, accumulating data, different authors. There's a lot of complications that actually start to pile into play there. So we wanted to do that and do an investigation there. We then followed on to that effort with a DOI working group to actually firm up that pilot into an actual established policy for the PDS, and also to develop some best practices for assigning DOIs to the various data sets in PDS. Data sets meaning, PDS3 data sets or the new nomenclature, which is PDS4 bundles and collections. We also wanted to improve the documentation for how people can cite PDS data. Again, that helps with that enabling reproducibility. The more documentation we have to make it easier for users to cite the data, the more likely folks will cite it in a very accurate way. So current state of DOIs in the PDS. So as of October of last year, the PDS had established a DOI policy where we will assign at least one DOI to all PDS4 bundles and selected PDS3 datasets, right? So the policy has some caveats for that, but that's kind of the high level idea. PDS4 bundles datasets are kind of, and PDS3 datasets are kind of the interchangeable nomenclature. There are some collections that receive DOIs. There are some documents that receive DOIs. There's definitely some nuances there. And so we'll work more towards that as well. But we've also implemented an operational DOI system that is in place as we speak. Most PDS data that you come across has a DOI associated with it. So most PDS3 datasets have received a DOI. If they haven't, it's most likely because they've been migrated to PDS4, and that is the DOI you should be using. We can talk about how you're going to be able to find those DOIs later. But in PDS4 metadata, it's actually in your bundle products. So if you go to the high level bundle, the top level bundle, or the top level collection, you can find in the metadata this DOI number in there. And so some of the nodes also have a website where you can find DOIs. But for all PDS4 data moving forward, they will receive a DOI prior to peer review. So that's another thing to look forward to. And as I mentioned, other DOIs may be available for PDS4 collections, documents on a case-by-case basis. Again, we'll talk about how you can go about requesting those or accessing those later on. So future plans. So one of our, I guess, near-term initiatives is to, now that we have this DOI policy in place, we have DOIs being assigned, we want to improve our citing PDS data webpage. So if you Google citing PDS data, most likely the top result that comes up is pds.nasa.gov, and it's this webpage. It doesn't look like this right now, but we're looking to improve it to hopefully provide much more usable information for folks to be able to cite or find information and find a DOI for their metadata, and then more so then be able to cite it accurately. And so we have some things like FAQs, how-to guides, some terminology. We have lots of things we're working on here, some different use cases. Obviously, it'll be evolving. Once this is released, we'll still be looking for feedback. And actually, if anybody is interested in reviewing these pages before we get them online, we have a couple scientists that have looked at them, but other folks who are regularly trying to track down this information, more people to look at it, the better. So please reach out, and we'd be happy to get you linked into what we're currently working on. Another thing we're trying to do is to improve the DOI metadata that's available in the labels. Right now, the citation information that's in our PDS data metadata is good, but we'd like it to match more closely and more robustly with what DOI metadata allows for, right? So things like ORCIDs and RARs and all these other things, all these other IDs and other unique identifiers and other information that can help really trace and really just cite this data accurately. And so we want to make sure that we don't just have that in some separate database sitting somewhere, but it's actually modeled in our data system and it's in our metadata. So then it just is an easy translation, one-to-one, back and forth. And so that's our future goal that we want to work towards. Also, dataset landing pages. I know they're very ugly right now. If you go to, we have some web pages out there that you can go to. Our landing pages are not great, but they do have the basic information on there. We want to include things like the actual DOI for the pages that's coming soon. We also want to include schema.org metadata. It'll also just look much nicer, be much more integrated into the data system as we're building out. We're working on a couple other initiatives for web improvements and search. And so we're kind of waiting to fix these pages until the service backend is ready to go. We also want to provide a basic search capability for finding applicable DOIs for a data product. So the idea is you'd be able to go to some interface like this and search by a DOI, a logical identifier, or a data set ID, or just some basic identifier for the data you're trying to search for, and it'll find the most applicable DOI for that information. So if you're using some, 10 products, 10 LRO, LROC products, if you can get those identifiers, you can drop them in here and you can actually find the associated DOIs for each of those. And then finally, we want to collaborate with the IPDA to adapt these policies for the entire international community so that we can have a consistent approach to assigning DOIs to planetary science data, so that if you are using data from the PDS or you're using data from something like Rosetta or Kaguya or any of these other ones, any of these other missions, that DOIs are assigned in a consistent fashion with consistent metadata. And it's pretty much ubiquitous across all planetary science. So it's a lot easier for you, the user, to cite this and to be able to go from one archive to another and be able to understand how to find and cite data products. So, okay, now on to how to find your DOIs. Well, as I mentioned, we are working on a search capability for DOIs. It does not currently exist. Some of the nodes do have DOIs on their landing pages for data sets, but if for some reason you cannot find the DOI for a data set, please contact us or contact your closest node representative. We can help you track down a DOI for whatever data set that is or whatever data you're using. We can help you with that. If the DOI is not assigned, we can get one for you. So please don't, I know it's an extra step in the process. So as soon as you think you're going to need a DOI for data and you have no idea how to find it, just let us know. We can at least get you in the right direction so that when you're ready to cite it in your paper, you have that information ready to go. So please, reach out anytime. That Need Help button is on all of the node web pages. You can click that. It'll come to us, and we can forward it on to the discipline nodes or whomever. So please, yes. And that's it. So thank you for your time. We have a lot more things coming along here with DOIs, and I'm sure our web pages will be updated, and some of these other new capabilities are going to be coming online soon. And so hopefully we'll get that information out through Open Planetary forums and through our websites, and hopefully more discussions like this via word of mouth. Thank you very much for your time.